This is Democracy Watch. Marc, you have just figured out a way to scare off some high-profile Republican voter challenges. So in Nevada, for example, Republicans were looking to challenge 30,000 voters in that state just weeks before the election. Then you stepped in. What happened?
Yeah, so they filed 3 lawsuits challenging 4 counties. So they filed a lawsuit in Clark County, which is Las Vegas, in Washoe County, which is Reno, and in Carson City, in which they covered 2 counties. And they talked a big game. My law firm filed to defend those lawsuits, intervened to defend those counties and defend those voters on behalf of some really great groups. And guess what? A few days later, the Pigpen plaintiffs who brought all these lawsuits said, you know what, never mind. They dismissed their lawsuits with prejudice, which means they can't file them again.
If these requests are being filed by a right-wing group, is it safe to say that the voters that they were challenging were Democratic voters?
Look, I didn't look to see who exactly they challenged, but it is fair to say that based on experience, that typically these right-wing groups are not challenging right-wing voters.
Right.
But in fairness, I didn't look in this particular case. But, Brian, this is the second time we've had this happen. This happened in a Georgia case we talked about, where same thing, they filed a lawsuit, we intervened, and the next thing you know, the lawsuit's gone.
So what is the thought process by these groups that they think that they're just going to be able to coast by and just kind of gobble up resources, but when they see your firm, they realize that they're just in over their heads?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. I think number one, in some instances, they think maybe they file a lawsuit and they actually get a cooperative defendant. I'm not saying that's the case in Nevada, certainly would not have been the case in Clark County, which is, a Democratic run county. But in some of these instances, you wonder, do they think that they are going to get a sympathetic hearing on the other side because the county that they're suing, or in the state, in the case of a lawsuit the RNC brought against Mississippi, the state might actually secretly be on their side. That's one possibility. The second is, which I think is more likely the case in a lot of these instances, is they just figure they'll overmatch these counties. They file these lawsuits. The counties have a million things to do, right?
Yeah.
We are weeks before an election, and they figure the counties may just give up because the counties don't want to go through the burden and expense of litigating. And the one thing the Republicans know, the one thing these right-wing groups know, is that when we get involved, we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. And typically we're going to win. There's a lot of these videos, and, people send them to me, Steve Bannon or, some other group talking about me and the one thing, and how much they hate me. And the one thing I always say is they hate me because we fight hard, and they fear me because we win. And I think that sometimes when we get involved there, the other side is just like, this is going to be a long slog, and we are probably in the end not going to win. And Mark's going to tweet about it.
Yeah. Has it altered the strategy by Democrats given that it's now more likely that when Republicans see your name on the other side of the V, whatever it is, pro-Trump Eagle PAC versus Elias Law Group, has that altered the strategy in that now it's more likely for groups to call you to get involved, even if you wouldn't have otherwise been involved, just because they know that the mere presence of your firm is going to probably have a chilling effect and make it less likely that they'll see this lawsuit through to the end?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any question that over the last 3 or 4 years, we, by reputation, have gained clients. Like there are organizations who come to us now and will say, we'd like to hire you because we think you're really great lawyers, and also because they think, our involvement in a case shows a seriousness of resolve. It's that we will fight hard, we will bring strong lawyering to it, but also that we're not going to back down. We're not going to be afraid to take on, the other side, and that is one of the hallmarks of my litigation, of my firms, and it's something I'm very proud of. I also think that one of the things that I find is that people on the other side kind of use me. I don't know if it's to like raise money for their groups, but like they invoke my name in all kinds of things. And sometimes I'm like,
you're a boogeyman for them now.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, I don't even know sometimes what case they're talking about. They make wild-eyed claims about how many lawyers we have or where we are or what we're up to. And sometimes I think that's just part of the other side's grift. And I never know, Brian, maybe I should ask you, you're like a social media star and a New York Times bestselling author, I might add, by the way. If you don't know that, you ought to go out and buy his book. Shameless. It is a great read. I mean this seriously. It's a great read. And I don't say this about many of the books that are sent to me, but it is really a great book, and you'll learn a lot about politics. But I can consult you. Like, I don't know what to do about that, because like on the one hand, I feel flattered. On the other hand, they are clearly raising money from unsuspected right-wing donors by using my name.
Look, they're gonna grift anyway. That there is nothing that's gonna stop them from grifting. So at this point, if it means that they can make you the boogeyman and raise your profile and make it more likely that other groups will bring you on, which will in turn scare those Republican groups off, let them do the work for you. Let them do the heavy lifting. And trust me, if they don't use your name, they will find something else to use to grift their supporters, be it crypto or $2 bills or coins or hats or shoes or trading cards. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
I do notice, by the way, Brian Tyler Cohen, that they tend to list me when they do list me, they seem to find a number of Jewish lawyers who they string together. Like,
yeah, I wonder what that could be. It's one of life's great mysteries.
Yeah.
With that said, for those watching right now, obviously, all of this underscores the importance of the work that Marc and his team are doing in the courts and that their presence in the court has. So a small step that we can all take to support their invaluable work right now is to sign up for Democracy Docket. It's the news outlet Marc founded to focus on everything voting in elections. It's also an amazing resource, aside from the fact that it'll help them by supporting their work. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Marc, does your firm have the resources to take on the workload that it's facing right now with all of these cases and this litigation that's being put up by these Republicans that are seeking to do everything from voter suppression, voter intimidation, trying to strike voters from the rolls within 30 days of an election?
Look, we've seen an unprecedented amount of litigation this year. In fact, Democracy Docket publishes a case tracker, which has become quite popular in the media. And if you subscribe to the newsletters, you'll get that on a daily basis. And it's a record number of cases, right? There have been, at this point, more than 180 lawsuits filed this year. So, and that vastly exceeds the total number of lawsuits filed in 2020 through the post-election, when 65 of those were in the post-election. So there's no possible way that any one law firm or one set of lawyers could handle all those cases. We are right now litigating more than 60 cases in 20 or so states, but there are a lot of other lawyers doing heavy lifting as well. So we are not the only ones. And I hope everyone follows Democracy Docket, in part because it's not just the lawsuits we're involved in, that they try to bring and try to spotlight to all of the good firms and good groups doing this important pro-democracy work.
And finally, you scared these guys off, but how many cases where you don't intervene have they gotten away with stuff like this? I mean, these extrajudicial efforts to, for example, strike 30,000 voters from the rolls.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the most overlooked aspects of our legal system. We are very used to party A brings a lawsuit and party B defends the lawsuit. What we have seen across a range of issues, not just voting issues, but across a range of issues, is conservative organizations trying to not just shop where they file a lawsuit. Do they find a judge in Texas who might be predisposed, but also naming defendants who either can't fight back as hard or won't fight back as hard. So I mentioned earlier that, my law firm and we also represent plaintiffs who intervened in a case that the Republican National Committee brought against the state of Mississippi. Now, color me skeptical here that the Republican Attorney General of Mississippi is standing up, as hard as he would if a lawsuit was filed by us against the Republican National Committee. And we've seen this tactic elsewhere, where it's either collusive, or if it's not collusive, and I'm not saying in Mississippi it was collusive, it's just like it's not the highest priority of resources. And oftentimes when they sue these counties, the counties don't have the resources. So it's really important that parties, whether it is entities that hire us or the Democratic National Committee that's done some great work here, the ACLU has done some great work here, I could go on and on, that they make sure they get a seat at the table to make sure that these lawsuits don't go forward without them being adequately defended. And like I said, that's a lot of the work we have had to do this year because of the volume of litigation that's been brought. Other groups have had to do it this year. And it's one of the reasons why Democracy Docket covers the range of these cases, because it's really important.
Perfectly put. And again, for those who want to support that work, I'll put the link to Democracy Docket right here on this screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.